Good evening and welcome to our daily devotional reading. I hope you had a good day. I hope you are tired and ready to go to bed. And I hope that my voice helps you to fall asleep quicker than you usually would. Let's turn inward. Let's look at the silence within. And from this silence, listen to what he's speaking. From the void, calling, pulling us closer. Begging us to listen. The being that is not a being. The voice that is not a voice. That which is heard, that is never spoken. Calling, calling. Listen. I would advise you to listen in your own time a bit longer to that voice, for that voice. But for now, we need to listen to Plato. Critias, when he heard this, said, "The headache will be an unexpected gain to my young relation if the pain in his head compels him to improve his mind. And I can tell you, Socrates, that Charmides is not only preeminent in beauty among his equals, but also in that quality which is given by the charm. And this, as you say, it's a dry throat. And this, as you say, is temperance, sophrosune. Also translated, I referenced another dictionary, online dictionary, as prudence, which we'll come back to at the end. Yes, I said, then let me tell you that he is the most temperate of human beings, and for his age inferior to none in any quality. Yes, I said, Charmides, and indeed I think that you ought to excel others in good qualities. For if I am not mistaken, there is no one present who could easily point out 2 Athenian houses whose union would be likely to produce a better and nobler schism than the 2 from which you are sprung. There is in your father's house, which is descended from Critias, the son of Dropidas, whose family have been commemorated in the panegyrical verse of Anarchion, Solon, and many other poets as famous for beauty and virtue and all other high fortune. And your mother's house is equally distinguished, for your maternal uncle, Pyralambes, is reputed never to have found his equal in Persia at the court of the great king, or on the continent of Asia, in all the places to which he went as ambassador, for stature and beauty. That whole family is not a whit inferior to the other. Having such ancestors, you ought to be first in all things. And, sweet son of Glaucon, your outward form is no dishonor to any of them." If to beauty you add temperance, and if in other respects you are what Critias declares you to be, then, dear Charmides, blessed art thou in being the son of thy mother. And here lies the point, for if, as he declares, you have this gift of temperance already, and are temperate enough, in that case you have no need of any charms, whether of Zolixus or of Abaris the Hyperborean, and I may as well let you have the cure of the head at once. But if you have not yet acquired this quality, I must use the charm before I give you the medicine. Please, therefore, to inform me whether you admit the truth of what Critias has been saying. Have you or have you not this quality of temperance? Charmides blushed, and the blush heightened his beauty, for modesty is becoming in youth. He then said very ingeniously that he really could not at once answer, either yes or no, to the question which I asked. For, he said, if I affirm that I am not temperate, that would be a strange thing for me to say of myself, and also I should give the lie to Critias and many others who think as he tells you, that I am temperate. But on the other hand, if I say that I am, I shall have to praise myself, which would be ill manners, and therefore I do not know how to answer you. I said to him, that is a natural reply, Charmides, and I think that you and I ought together to inquire whether you have this quality about which I am asking or not. And then you will not be compelled to say what you do not like. Neither shall I be a rash practitioner of medicine. Therefore, if you please, I will share the inquiry with you, but I will not press you if you would rather not. There is nothing which I should like better, he said, and as far as I am concerned, you may proceed in the way you think best. I think, I said, that I had better begin by asking you a question. For if temperance abides in you, you must have an opinion about her. She must give some intimation of her nature and qualities, which may enable you to form a notion of her. Is not that true? Yes, he said, that I think is true. You know your native language, I said, and therefore you must be able to tell what you feel about this. Certainly, he said. In order then that I may form a conjecture whether you have temperance abiding in you or not, tell me, I said, what in your opinion is temperance? At first he hesitated and was very unwilling to answer. Then he said that he thought temperance was doing things orderly and quietly. Such things, for example, as walking in the streets and talking, or anything else of that nature. In a word, he said, I should answer that, in my opinion, temperance is quietness. Are you right, Charmides? I said. No doubt some would affirm that the quiet are the temperate, but let us see whether these words have any meaning. And first tell me whether you would not acknowledge temperance to be the class of the noble and good. Yes, but which is best when you are at the writing master's, to write the same letters quickly or quietly? The other translation mentions in the footnote Greek word quietly connotes slowness as well. Otherwise, it really doesn't make sense, this following passage. Quickly, and to read quickly or slowly, quickly again. And in playing the lyre or wrestling, quickness or sharpness are far better than quietness and slowness. Yes, and the same holds in boxing and in the pancratium. Certainly, and in leaping and running and in bodily exercises generally, quickness and agility are good, slowness and inactivity and quietness are bad. That is evident. Then, I said, in all bodily actions, not quietness, but the greatest agility and quickness is noblest and best. Yes, certainly. And is temperance a good? The other translation has something admirable. The Greek is kalon, so it's something beautiful or noble. Yes. Then in reference to the body, not quietness, but quickness will be the higher degree of temperance, if temperance is good. True, he said. And which, I said, is better? Facility in learning or difficulty in learning? Facility. Yes, I said, and facility in learning is learning quickly, and difficulty in learning is learning quietly and slowly. True. And is it not better to teach another quickly and energetically, rather than quietly and slowly? Oops. Yes. And which is better, to call to mind and to remember, quickly and readily, or quietly and slowly? The former. And is not shrewdness a quickness or cleverness of the soul, and not a quietness? True. And is not best to understand, and is it not best to understand what is said, whether at the writing masters or at the music masters or anywhere else, not as quietly as possible, but as quickly as possible? Yes. And in the searching or deliberation of the soul, not the quietest, as I imagine, and he who was difficulty deliberates and discovers, is thought worthy of praise, but he who does so most easily and quickly. I'm going to read that sentence again, because I felt like I didn't quite get it. And in the searchings or deliberations of the soul, not the quietest, as I imagine, and he who with difficulty deliberates and discovers, is thought worthy of praise, but he who does so most easily and quickly. Quite true, he said. And in all that concerns either body or soul, swiftness and activity are clearly better than slowness and quietness. Clearly they are. Then temperance is not quietness, nor is the temperate life quiet. Certainly not upon this view. For the life which is temperate is supposed to be the good. And of two things one is true. Either never or very seldom do the quiet actions in life appear to be better than the quick and energetic ones. Or supposing that of the nobler actions there are as many quiet as quick and vehement. Still, even if we grant this, temperance will not be acting quietly any more than acting quickly and energetically, either in walking or talking or in anything else. Nor will the quiet life be more temperate than the unquiet, seeing that temperance is admitted by us to be a good and noble thing, and the quick have shown to be as good as the quiet. I think, he said, Socrates, that you are right. Then once more, Charmides, I said, fix your attention and look within. Consider the effect which temperance has upon yourself, and the nature of that which has the effect. Think over all this, and like a brave youth, tell me, what is temperance? After a moment, I lost my place. I'm doing the washing. And I heard the washing machine and I lost concentration. After a moment's pause in which he made a real manly effort to think, to look into himself, the other translation says, he said, my opinion, Socrates, is that temperance makes a man ashamed or modest, and that temperance is the same as modesty. Very good, I said. And did you not admit just now that temperance is noble? Yes, certainly, he said. And the temperate are also good? Yes. And can that be good which does not make men good? Certainly not. And you would infer that temperance is not only noble but also good. That is my opinion. Well, I said, but surely you would agree with Homer when he says, modesty is not good for a needy man. Yes, he said, I agree. Then I suppose that modesty is and is not good? Clearly. But temperance, whose presence makes men only good and not bad, is always good. That appears to me to be as you say. And the inference is that temperance cannot be modesty, if temperance is good, and if modesty is as much an evil as a good. Oh, thus far our scripture of the evening. I added here a definition of prudence because, as I mentioned, I noticed in the other dictionary that sophrosune is translated, can also be translated as prudence. Prudence, of course, mostly is the translation of phronesis, which is practical wisdom. The particular dictionary I'm referring to does not have phronesis as prudence, but most people, or many places, do translate phronesis as prudence. So prudence is the ability to govern and discipline oneself through the use of reason. It is defined as cautious, sensible judgment in practical affairs, prioritizing forethought and risk aversion over impulsive decisions. And I think I can see both sophrosune and phronesis in there. The ability to govern and discipline oneself through the use of reason, defined as cautious, sensible judgment in practical affairs, prioritizing forethought and risk aversion over impulsive decisions. It's extremely warm today, so I have my curtains drawn. And that's why it's a bit dark on this side. On that side there's no sun, so that those curtains can be open. What is phronesis? No. What is sophrosune? Sorry. Phronesis is more interesting, I think, but okay. First, I wrote down, which has nothing necessary to do with that, but maybe it does. Moderation, sophrosune, temperance. Let's keep with temperance. Because it's a strange enough word that we don't automatically know what it means. Charmides' ancestors are referenced, and Socrates says that he could not help but be a good boy because of his ancestors. And I listened earlier today to a clip with, 16 minute clip with Robert Sapolsky. There's no free will thing. And that made me think of that. And it could be very interesting, of course, to consider what exactly is temperance when we keep in mind there's no free will, that we are what we are, not only because of our ancestors, our culture. Robert Sapolsky goes into every single thing that makes us do what we do, up to the things that happen in our brain. Without our free will. And one usually thinks that virtue is associated with free will, with choice, choosing to be good. But clearly, even Socrates is stating here that it's in some people's blood just to be also of the beautiful soul. I won't go deep into that now, mostly because I'm too warm. But I think that could be an interesting discussion. This passage made me think a lot about the dialectic into dialogos process. And I think maybe Chris and John got a lot from this dialogue in particular. I spoke about the dialectic into dialogos practice previously, It was an attempt, and I think a very successful attempt, by the two gentlemen, and I think they had other collaborators, to design a practice that helped people very structuredly imitate the dialogues of Plato, imitate dialectic, in the hope that the words, the conversation will catch fire, and what they call dialogos will follow. There's what is, and then naming the virtue. What jumped out at me most was, okay, the words I wrote down exactly what he said later is: fix your attention and look within. Consider the effect the virtue has in you and the nature of that which has the effect. That is basically the instruction of dialectic into dialogos. And the odd thing is, whenever you practice that, when you do the practice, the virtue does seem to appear. Everyone feels a bit more temperate afterwards, or whichever, courageous afterwards, or wise afterwards. Not in the sense that you feel, oh, now I am wise, but you feel closer, because he also speaks of the virtue indwelling him. You feel closer, and as if something of that virtue has entered you and hopefully left its mark on you. And then the whole no free will automatically pops up again, right? Because change is possible, even though we do not have free will, because we can change what and who we are to some extent. And practice makes perfect. And if you then expose yourself to these practices, would you not kind of program yourself for being more virtuous? I think that is the intention of the practice, explicitly stated by the gentleman who designed it. It's not only about intellectual understanding, but it's about becoming more virtuous, more noble, more good. Better is not the word I want to use. The examples he uses here is not necessarily what jumps to our mind when we think of temperance. But what I really did like, because it very much relates, of course it does, to what I was thinking as I was reading today's passage from the Mystics. I'm not falling asleep anymore when I read it, so something has been overcome in my soul. Two things about this particular passage jumped out at me: how the actions were fear-driven, and things were done which I would not consider noble and good. As Socrates himself doesn't consider modesty noble or good, for instance. The practice of, because I've also been asking myself, but why do we want to be good? Why do we want the truth? Beauty seems more evident because life is simply more pleasant with beautiful things around. And maybe life is just more pleasant when the good is around, or when the truth is around as well. But one thing that I think we should really strive to avoid, and which those religions who has a judging God are very good at encouraging is that it should be driven by fear. Then the Calvinistic attitude, although maybe it's not always lived, it is in the catechisms. I don't know, is that correctly pronounced? That anything good that flows from us should be gratitude, and that brings me again back to the no free will thing. I am really lucky, I think, to be who I am. Because despite my ups and downs with the month, I'm subscribed to an app which tells me exactly what I should expect that day emotionally. And I usually get it after I've noticed the emotions. So it's very reassuring that it's my hormones speaking and not anything else. My life doesn't suck, it's just my perspective that sucks on that particular days. But I am drawn to things that are supposedly good for me. Also, of course, to things that's not good for me. I am excited to get out of bed in the morning because I can read and drink coffee. I do like my cup of black coffee in the morning. As I always say, as black and bitter as my soul. And for me, that is enough to be excited to get up so that I can read and drink my coffee. So you can imagine those 6 months that I only read free books, how horrific it was. I probably did drink a lot of coffee, though. At least there's always coffee. Which is why I really cannot understand how Emile Choran can call himself a pessimist and still give up coffee to extend his life. Why? If not for red wine and black coffee, what's the point? I've got distracted. Practices like self-harm, not only by fasting, to almost like the dude in Dostoevsky, the other guy who sees demons everywhere. You will see demons if you never sleep and hardly eat anything. If you starve yourself from human contact and sleep and food and water. But this woman actually cut off a piece of her flesh. That is gross. And seriously requires some therapy. And then seen as someone holy. May we live in an age where the noble and good comes with higher standards. Not making yourself small. Not hurting yourself, not denying life. But embracing life. I thought it before, and this morning it was because I heard a song that reminded me of that, and it's such a cool song. You just have to dance when you hear it. I think Nietzsche calls himself lightning. If nature was the lightning, we are the thunder. It has begun. May the spirit of Sophia be with us.